how to correctly train your employees to follow your procedures. Have you ever felt that you are trying to train your employees to follow your procedures, but they just don't? Have you ever thought, okay, well, why am I going to publish more procedures that are just not being followed? Or how about thinking, well, there's probably something wrong with my staff because they just don't follow procedures? Well, that is not the reason. So listen to this video and you'll see why those procedures are not being followed and what to do to ensure that they are. So this is the number one problem that I hear from business owners that do have documented processes. They basically say that they're not being followed. Yes, we spend so much time documented, or we have everything documented, but they're just not being followed. And you hear a myriad of reasons. It can be, well, my employees are lazy, they just don't want to use it, I can never train them, I tried and I failed. So you can look at it from different viewpoints, but the bottom line is that those documents are not being used, they're not being followed. So you're really not solving the problems that well-followed SOPs will solve, which is consistency, ability to train everyone on the same page. You don't have to repeat yourself because people actually look at the SOPs as opposed to coming to you. So what's the problem? Where do we start? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to obtain buy-in. Buy-in. Every one of your employees, your team members, they have to understand what is in it for them if they follow the procedures. Because if they're not convinced, nothing will happen. And trust me on that. We work with hundreds and hundreds of businesses, and it is the same problem. If the employee does not have their own why of why that procedure needs to be implemented, what will happen if I follow the procedure? They're just not going to do it because it's easier to just do it the way they always done it. It's faster to just do it. All kinds of reasons, and we don't need to get into that. But the bottom line is that you have to obtain buy-in. How do you do that? You basically have a communication. You communicate to each one of your team members. Maybe you have too many team members. We're talking about companies. We work with companies that have hundreds of employees, tens of employees, hundreds of employees, different sizes, different size companies. And yes, you're not going to go and talk to each and every employee. So the best way to do it, what we found, is actually conduct a survey. Conduct a survey and ask those questions. So what will happen if you had well-documented processes for your area? What part of your job frustrates you the most? Where are you running into trouble? Or where do you think more efficiency can be brought in? What will make your job better or easier? There are different ways of asking those questions, but do ask those questions and then tie it in to how well-documented processes and procedures will solve the problem that the employee is talking about. That is a key component, and it's the first thing that needs to be done in order for you to obtain that buy-in from your employees so then they can follow the processes and procedures. So you have that, you have the buy-in, then you need to roll it out. So you roll out the training. You have to have organized training that you know exactly how you're doing it. So the first thing is to read the procedures. And yes, that sounds obvious, but it is a problem because many times we uncover when we go to companies and find out why the processes are not followed by all, we find that they simply were not rolled out to everyone. So the processes have to be rolled out. So that's why I highly recommend using a process documentation platform, because that will allow you to see who went into the process, when, how long they spent on each process, did they read it, not read it. I mean, of course, you don't know what their eyes did, but if somebody was there and then they sign it off, you would assume if you have a good culture that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, that they actually read it. If you are saying, well, I don't know, well, then we have a culture problem and we have to talk about a completely different thing. But rolling it out correctly to your team and making sure that they actually read it is a key component. Of course, you have to have good documentation in place, and that is very important. So please subscribe to my channel. I have many videos that I talk about how to correctly document your processes and procedures and make them so they will cater to all ways that people learn. Using videos, using screenshots, using audio. It might be that there are downloadable things that people can actually do things with them, because some people are doers and they don't just want to read, and of course also also reading text. That is a way that people learn as well. So make sure that your processes are well documented. And again, if you didn't subscribe, make sure to do so you can watch those videos. But going back to the implementation, we assume that you wrote your processes and procedures correctly. So then the next step, after you got the buy-in, to make sure that everyone read those processes. So we roll it out. And in the process of rolling out, we also conduct a survey or a quiz to make sure that we consult the understanding of the people that are reading it to ensure that they got it. The most important thing is now utilizing the processes and the procedures in day-to-day operation. And I have an entire webinar just on how to do that. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and you look for that webinar. But I'm going to give you some of the main points right now. One of the key points is that every time that you have an issue, you identify what the issue is and you figure out a solution, always refer back to your processes. Because if something happened, if you have an issue, something is not optimum, it has to be related to a procedure. It's either you don't have a procedure, so you need one. It might be that the procedure was not followed, and then you go over the steps and identify exactly what step was not followed and why. It might be that you need to revise the procedure. It might be that you need to add to the procedure. And it might be a people problem where they didn't follow the procedure, but then you can understand why. Why didn't you follow the procedure? Why was it easier to just go and do it your way as opposed to look at the procedure? So that's very important to identify whether it was a people problem, a process problem, or both, and utilize the procedures in day-to-day operation. Another key component on using the procedures is in training new employees, so everyone is on the same page. And if you want to find out how to onboard employees correctly, then watch the next video where I talk about how to correctly onboard employees and how to create a foolproof onboarding checklist. In future videos, I'm going to talk more about how to get the processes implemented and followed by all. So make sure to subscribe and follow my channel. Until next time, thank you for watching.